This is A Word, a podcast from Slate. I'm your host, Jason Johnson. Entertainment attorney Douglas Emhoff has already broken barriers. He's the first man to serve as Second Gentleman and the first Jewish person in the role as White House spouse. So how does he see his role changing as Vice President Kamala Harris campaigns to win the White House?
Listen to what she's saying about the future, about an America where we all have a place, doing it with joy and optimism and happiness.
Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff coming up on A Word with me, Jason Johnson. Stay with us. Welcome to A Word, a podcast about race and politics and everything else. I'm your host, Jason Johnson. The dramatic twists and turns of this year's presidential race have left America's media, political class, and many ordinary citizens completely off balance. But few of us have felt those changes as powerfully as our guest today. Douglas Emhoff was a successful entertainment attorney when he met Kamala Harris, who was then serving as the Attorney General of California. Their marriage plunged him into the world of national politics. He was at her side through her first run for the White House in 2019, and for the last 4 years, he has served as Second Gentleman of the United States, the first man in that role. And now he and his family are poised to make history again this month when Vice President Harris is set to formally accept the Democratic nomination for president. He'll be right at her side. We're honored to speak with Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff here in Washington studios of the Democratic National Committee.
It's great to see you again.
Thank you so much. Really, really excited. Douglas Emhoff, welcome to A Word.
Thank you.
We'll start with this. We're speaking on Thursday. It's just one day after Trump's disastrous appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists. And amongst other things, he verbally attacked the vice president and accused her of embracing her Black heritage for political gain. I'm going to ask you, what is it like when you hear these kinds of attacks against your wife from the former president and from Republicans in general?
That was a deep sigh to start.
Yeah.
I spoke about this yesterday. I was at an event and we saw this happening. What I said was basically, he's a worse version of an already horrible person. And this guy should be nowhere near the White House ever again. I mean, it's a disgusting, despicable thing to say, especially to who he said it to and in the room he said it to and the way in which he said it to those reporters, those women reporters who were sitting up there taking that abuse. And a lot of credit to them. But, it's just Trump being despicable. But we cannot get distracted from what's really happening. Because what people always ask, why is he talking about Hannibal Lecter? Why is he doing all these things? It's, one, he's just a horrible person. But two, it's to distract from what they're trying to do. Project 2025, the Dobbs decision, is to basically destroy our country and turn it into this hellscape, which they want to do. So we've got to stay focused. Yeah, no one wants to hear that. But I loved what I would say the vice president, my wife, I was like Kamala, said last night at her speech. We're just tired of this. We're just tired of him. Go away. And that's not what a real leader says or does. And you have to be able to just lead. He's clearly degrading before our eyes. Mm-hmm. And he's just not able to do this. So we've just got to just move on, listen to what she's saying about the future, about an America where we all have a place, doing it with joy and optimism and happiness. So that's how I feel about it.
The vice president is one of the most consequential jobs in the country, but it can be strangely invisible in some ways. Many American people are just getting to know the vice president, and they're just getting to know you. What's something that you want the public to know about you as they're getting to know you now that you're in this prominent position and could be the first gentleman?
I approach all this first as I'm her husband. I'm there to love her, have her back, support her, be there for Cole and Ella and her family and my family, our big, huge blended family. And I approach it that way. And it also really helps in my role as a second gentleman. And it helps being out there on the campaign, helping her get elected president. So if you approach it that way, it just really helps. So, I'm there for her. And in turn, one way to really support her is to be as good as I can be as second gentleman and be as good as I can be out on the campaign trail.
One of the interesting things about being the second gentleman is you do have sort of your own set of responsibilities, your own set of interests. And that's something that people are very curious about. What have you sort of been doing over the last 4 years that's brought you joy in this position?
Well, remember, Jason, when they took office in early 2021, COVID raging, post-insurrection, fomented by the guy running for the office again, which just is so outrageous to me. So look what we inherited. It was a mess caused by Donald Trump. And so a lot of that first year was just trying to get people vaccinated, get businesses up and running, get people back to work, back to school, back to their lives. And once we were able to do that with the American Rescue Plan and other things, what can I do in this role where I could really be useful? And I thought there were three things. One would be, since I'm the first Jewish person to ever be in this role, just hate, fight hate. There, again, a lot of anti-Semitism, but there's a lot of hate in general. So I really made that part of my mission from day one. Two, being the first man in this role, what can I do to lift up women? Because of the whole gender flip, there'd never been a man here. And I've also stepped away from my legal career, which I loved. And how can I lift up this big topic of gender equity? And then with the Dobbs decision coming down, it really morphed into not only gender equity, pay equity, family leave, childcare, access to health care, but also this horrific consequence of the Dobbs decision, which ripped away rights that had been on the books for over 50 years. And it's a crisis. It's a healthcare crisis. So I've been very loud on that issue, including yesterday in New Hampshire, doing a rally, just talking about how we need Kamala Harris to be president so we can rectify a situation that is just impacting millions of people, not just women, men also. And then third, as a lawyer, access to the legal system. We call it access to justice. So how can we get more folks the ability to have a lawyer, know where to find a lawyer, and encourage lawyers to do more pro bono or free legal services. So that's what I've done as second gentleman. I hope to continue that as the first gentleman and take on other things to support her and her administration.
One of the amazing things about the position you're in is, because it's historic, your ability to get advice from people might be a bit limited, right? There's been no one else you can talk to. Did you have conversations maybe with Hillary Clinton? Did you have conversations with Michelle Obama? Were there other people that you talked to about, well, what do I do now that I'm in this sort of prominent role, and the role that you might have as soon as January?
Again, remember, I'm a lawyer, so I always love to research and study. So I have spoken to all those esteemed women and others who have been either second lady or first lady. It's such a different experience. And there's also nuts and bolts aspects of like, well, how does food get into this place? And how does all this stuff work? So there's a lot of things that are so non-obvious or don't really make sense. So they all kind of laugh when you talk about what it's like to be in these positions. You kind of share stories of like how this really works. And then also finding my voice and to talk, even Dr. Biden, who was second lady and then first lady. So when we started, I said, do you have any advice? She's like, I got to tell you, because you're the first man and she's the first woman, and it's this day and age of social media and this post-Trump presidency, post-insurrection, it's just going to be much different. So what I can just tell you is you have to be authentic. If you are not yourself, the Doug Emhoff that she had gotten to know then and certainly now, you just have to be you. Otherwise, everyone can, ferret out a phony or a fake. And I think I've just always defaulted to just be myself, be authentic, call it like I see it. And that's what I've been trying to do.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more of our conversation with Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff. This is A Word with Jason Johnson. Stay tuned. Explore the biggest political corruption scheme in U.S. history in the latest season of the Wondery podcast, American Scandal: Teapot Dome. Using vivid and immersive storytelling, American Scandal retraces the bribes, players, and underhanded deals of the Teapot Dome scandal. In 1922, newspapers reported that Secretary of the Interior Albert Fayl had leased federally owned oil reserves to two of the nation's wealthiest oil barons, Edward Doheny and Harry Sinclair. Fall had made the deals to enrich himself, and all three men were charged with defrauding the U.S. government. The scandal, named after one of the oil reserves in Wyoming, would eventually send Sinclair to prison for contempt of Congress and jury tampering. This made Fall the first person ever convicted of a crime committed while serving in the U.S. cabinet. Follow American Scandal on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge this season, American Scandal, Teapot Dome, early and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus. Go deeper and get more to the story with Wondery's top history podcasts, including American History Tellers, Legacy, and even The Royals. You're listening to A Word with Jason Johnson. Today, we're talking with Douglas Emhoff, the Second Gentleman of the United States, husband of Vice President Kamala Harris. You mentioned before that part of your portfolio was fighting back against hate. And I find that really compelling because we're in a conversation in this country a lot now about anti-Semitism, about identity, and the former president has attacked you. I won't even repeat the things that he said about you. It's one thing to see that against the vice president. It's part of her job. But when it's you, just mano a mano, how does that make you feel? I mean, do you get on the phone and call the vice president and say, I know I can't say anything, but I'm upset? How does that feel?
You know, I'm the guy that jumped up on the stage in San Francisco. Yeah. So that's the real me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, unfortunately, and it's such a terrible thing to say, I'm just used to it and she's used to it. And it's just a bad thing to have to feel that being attacked, you know, attacking other family members. It's, you know, no one wants to see anyone attacked. You know, the thing about motherhood that J.D. Vance introduced himself to the country with, it's all terrible. And nobody wants to get attacked, especially, you know, I always feel, you know, I'm Papa Bear. I can take it, bring it on. I'll take it all, but don't hurt my family. And so, you know, I'm that guy, but I'm also in this position. So you have to really train yourself to just let it bounce off you. And again, realize what are they really trying to do? Right. And they're really trying to, you know, use hateful language to divide us rather than to unify us. And of course, I thought Senator Schumer just nailed it in his speech on the Senate floor because he got pulled into that as well. So I think what he said was just correct. Everything out of his mouth attacking me and Senator Schumer and all of us Jews, it's just pure anti-Semitism. So, and it's every trope under the sun. And it's just completely disgusting and unacceptable. And, you know, this Jewish person, and I know many, many, many Jewish people, are going to vote for President Harris, soon to be President Harris.
You have become a meme. You have become popular in social media. There's GIFs of you showing the Kamala t-shirt. You might be the most prominent interracial couple in the world next to Harry and Meghan. What's it like to be a cultural icon now? I mean, you were an entertainment lawyer, but you're now in this space where you're sort of famous in your own right, and your goals, as the kids say, for a lot of sort of modern families in America.
Oh, my kids think it's funny. And a lot of my friends think it's funny. And again, we're in a battle to save our democracy right now. So I've been saying on the campaign trail for the last 9 or 10 days, we cannot get distracted. I know Kamala Harris has excited this country, and to the extent I have with the memes, great, but we got a job to do, and we got 96 days to do it. So while all that stuff is great, I do not want us to be distracted, and she certainly does not. So it's like, look, we got to focus on getting the word out, traveling the country, and making sure people register to vote and making sure people come out to the polls, because this contrast is so stark. Look at that guy who was up on stage yesterday and then his rally later. Do you want that to be the president of the United States? Do you want that picking the next couple of Supreme Court justices? Or do you want Kamala Harris, smarts, compassion, empathy, forward-looking view of the world, picking the Supreme Court justice? So that's really what I'm focused on right now.
There's an element of your old career, and some people say, when you transition in careers, it's difficult, right? You go from being this really successful lawyer to working in the White House. What aspects of your former career do you bring to what you do now? What parts of that make being Second Gentleman easier or more enjoyable for you?
I think about that a lot. Like, how have I been able to do all the things that I've been doing? And again, being a lawyer in Hollywood, where there's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of expectation, but there's also a lot of listening. And there's also a lot of give and take. And you cannot take, zero-sum positions because you're all essentially working in that same industry together. And it also how to withstand pressure and remain kind of confident when things are choppy around you, and to speak extemporaneously, to make arguments, to try to do it based on facts and evidence, not on insults. And also, I'm open-minded. Like, it's such a great artistic community, and to know that, like, diversity is a good thing, diversity of thought, of people and ideas. And so for me, coming out of that milieu, I cannot think of a better background, honestly, to be able to do what I'm doing now than to come out of where I came from. And it's also, I came into her life when she was a first-term attorney general. So it's not like I was sitting with her for 20 years as a political partner to her. I had my own thing, my own career. And even up until she was vice president, I was a full-time entertainment lawyer right up until she got the call from President Biden to jump on the ticket. So it was a very stark transition, and but here I am.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more with U.S. Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff. This is A Word with Jason Johnson. Stay tuned. You're listening to A Word with Jason Johnson. Today, we're honored to be talking with Douglas Emhoff, the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris. Later on this month, you all will celebrate your 10-year anniversary, which is amazing. And I know trying to fit that in during a campaign season is going to be difficult. How do you find the time and space for yourself and for this important relationship during these times? Is it a daily phone call? Is it calling when you're on the elliptical and she's traveling around the country? How do you sort of keep that bond going?
Yeah, all those things. I've barely seen her for the past couple of weeks, because I think I was in LA when all this happened on Sunday and a half ago. Yeah. So, and I had been on the road for the campaign. I was actually in Phoenix that Friday. So I didn't see her. Thursday night was the last time I saw her until Monday. So the whole world essentially changed on a dime. And when I saw her, it was in that big rally at the Wilmington HQ. So I walked right into that, saw her in the hold for a second, gave her a hug. And then the president's voice came on a speaker to talk to all of us. And it just stopped us all in our tracks. It was so emotional to hear him talking to us and talking to her, saying how much he loved us and loved her and was with us. And then I got pushed out on that stage to introduce her. So think about it. I had barely seen her. I was stuck in LA. She's now earning the nomination, and I'm just thrown out there to talk. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. I've barely seen her. And you're right. It's quick phone calls, FaceTimes. But one of them was just the other night where I was finishing up an event, and she had just given her speech, essentially saying, you got something to say? Say it to my face. And I don't really carry my phone too much. So I was in the car and I pick it up, and it's the first text is from my 87-year-old father, saying, say it to my face with 3 exclamation points. Like, why is my dad saying that to me? Then, of course, it was like 20 other texts. She calls in. Did you see my speech? And I said, well, yeah, I'm getting the gist of it. And it's those kind of, and she called from Air Force 2, by the way. So that's just you just reflect on how surreal does that sound. Again, coming from Hollywood, that script would be, thrown out the door because it just seems so unusual, but that's how we're trying to keep in touch right now. I haven't seen her. I've been on the road. She's been on the road. She's in Houston right now, giving the eulogy for Sheila Jackson Lee. So I think I'm going to see her later tonight, I believe. But I'm back on the road, and then of course. And I don't know who it is, so don't ask. I was going to try. Okay. I don't know America, so don't ask. It's so funny. Everyone has become an expert in running presidential campaigns and sweepstakes. It's pretty funny. But on Tuesday in Philadelphia, I will be there with the new running mate. So I'm looking forward to that, just like everyone else.
I want to sort of close with these just very quickly. It's 90 something days. 96 days before a world changing election. What do you want to make sure you do as second gentleman? It's like everybody on the team has a different role to play. What's the thing you are going to make sure you do for the next 96 days?
Yeah, one, we're all going to hustle. And that's why I'm so happy to see all the joy and excitement and all the metrics that can measure that. But like I keep telling everyone, we haven't won anything. And look who we're running against. Again, we already knew how terrible he was the first time. It's going to be far, far worse this time. And they are showing us. It's in a document. Look at the Dobbs decision. This is real. It is a stark world if he comes back, and a great, awesome world if she comes in there. So it's just making that message. But also, I've got to be up my husband game, because it's so funny, it's kind of watching her, and it's like, oh my God, that's my wife. I wonder if she'll return my call. But it's,
am I still in the top?
Yeah, it's just being her husband still, especially now where she needs my support more than ever. So be there for her. And we've got this big team here on the campaign, and just be there for them. And just, I know her, about the best of anyone. And I just want to make sure everyone in America knows the Kamala Harris that I know, just that the one you're seeing, that leader, but also the mother, the auntie, the one who loves cooking us Sunday dinner, the one who's just, she's fun. You've met her.
Oh yeah.
She's funny. She's fun. And that's we got to make sure that people know what they're getting. A real, true leader who's focused on them and their issues and not themselves, which is what the former guy is all about.
You are married to one of the most impressive and soon to be powerful women on planet Earth. And a lot of men have asked me, how do you do that? What's the advice that you would give to a man married to someone who is so much to the world, and how you have to share them with the world? What is your advice to guys out there who see you as a role model and as an example of something that they're trying to be in a way they want to go?
Again, it's that authenticity. First, you got to have confidence in yourself and who you are and your position in this world. And I think it was on our first date, because she was already Attorney General, and we went into a restaurant in LA, and a lot of people were looking at her, saying hi, and it was very apparent. This was a love at first sight situation, and it was almost like we knew this was going to work. And she said something like, "Can you handle this?" I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty confident, and I have a healthy ego, and I just want to make sure, we pay attention to each other." And that has been our North Star, our entire relationship. So as she went from first-term Attorney General to now possibly the next President of the United States, that has been the same. So you got men. For me, it's not telling anyone what to do, but my thing is I'm retained no matter what, is I still have confidence and healthy ego. And it's okay to step away from my career at this point to help her. That doesn't make me any less. It makes us more, and it helps us together. And the other thing I'll say is it comes back to me as well. This is not a one-sided relationship where I'm just sitting there, go Kamala, what can I do for you? It's like, Dougie, what do you need? What can I do? And she's helped me transition, because she knew this was tough. I gladly did it, but to go from a 30-year successful career that I loved to doing this overnight, she's been so supportive of just, making sure that I'm okay, making sure that, I'm being looked after, and that this is working all the time, even now. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, you just go become president. But that's the relationship. So it's a two-sided thing.
Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff is an entertainment lawyer, a dad, and the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you so much for joining us today on A Word.
What a pleasure. Great to see you. This was great. Thank you, Jason.
That's A Word for this week. The show's email is aword@slate.com. This episode was produced by Ahyiana Angel. Ben Richmond is Slate's Senior Director of Podcast Operations. Alicia Montgomery is the Vice President of Slate Audio. Our theme music was produced by Don Will. I'm Jason Johnson. Tune in next week for A Word.
To the teachers, assistants, and support staff who see potential in every child, Grand Canyon University recognizes you. We created the National Center for Teacher Preparation at GCU, along with a generous scholarship, so you can become a licensed teacher with paid benefits. Over 100 GCU alumni have been recognized award recipients, including Superintendent, Administrator, and Teacher of the Year. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/parapro.